Hello again, welcome back. So today we will be continue on our next chapter. So this is listening in public speaking. So last time we have learned on the ethics in the public speaking. Now we will move on the next chapter that will talk about the importance of listening in public speaking. Alright, so our learning objectives today, you will be learn on listening in public speaking and the reasons on why is important for us to listen, the causes of poor listening, and how to become a better listener. So, as you can see in this slide, you can look at persons have talking to them one person. So sometimes this is might be clear to you. And most of the researchers reveal that people are taking actually taking for granted when people will like to talk to them, and they are trying to fact that they are paying attention to you. As you can see from this dialogue, so this one person is let's say this is Angelina, who are actually just getting promoted from a supervisor to be a manager. So she's written to her home with the excitement, and she found her husband on the couch staring into his laptop. So she asked the husband, guess what? She asked. The husband said, what? He replied, and his eyes never leaving the computer screen, still focused on his screen. And then the wife said, I got the promotion at work. Then the husband replied, that's great. So the wife says that let's go out to dinner to celebrate. She said, heading into the bedroom to change clothes. But after 15 minutes later, Rose emerged from the bedroom and saw her husband in the same positions of the couch, his eyes still glued on the screen and hugging the cup. And the husband said to his wife, you look nice, he exclaimed. Where are you going? So the husband is obviously didn't paying fully attention to the wife. So this is actually one of the examples of poor listening, and even people are trying to fake that they pay attention. And sometimes, even though that we are talking to someone, that they might be listening to us, but some of people didn't able to differentiate between listening and hearing. Hearing is a physiological process which involves the vibrations of sound waves on our eardrums and the firing of electronic pulses from the inner ear to the central auditory system of the brain. But as for listening, it is involved paying close attention to and making sense of what we hear, when we mean, what we are listening carefully, and we usually grasp only 50 of what we hear. Yeah? And after 24 hours, we just can only remember 10% from the original message. So this is, of course, mostly what will be happening mostly happen to us. And then I think while you in your study life, when your friends were talking to you about your assignment, you actually also have committed to this what we call these actions. Yeah. So let's try do not to be a poor listener. So this is the not the example. This is the definitions of hearing and listening. So this are the difference between hearing and listening. So like I have explained it before, hearing is a physical process. It is natural and passive. As for listening, it is not only by physical you but is usually evolved with mental process, active and learned process. And it is important because 90% of the student time is listening to discussions, lectures, talkings, or listening to music. And some of the top flight business executive or successful politicians, brilliant teacher, are actually a very good listener. Why are they this very good as a good listener? Because they have been practiced in their life listening to a lecture and taking notes to a lecture. And then they have been depends on absorbing information that is given verbally. So you as a student, you should be able to absorb an information as you have been practiced is in every semester from time to time. And no worries if you feel that you're still unable to understand or paying attention to the class, you can be practicing every time we have our class by taking notes. And if you are in a class presidents or you have been interviewed some of the leaders, then or any people that is actually a very good speaker, you might be shocked that how that this person closely listen to your words and how they can respond to your questions very attentively and accurately. So because of their have practiced it, so they can be a good listener. And you also have to bear in your mind as a speaker, listening is also important. And you get the information from televisions, radio, conversation, and lectures. If you do not listen well, you will not understand what you hear, and you may pass along your misunderstanding to the others. All right. So this is the listening and critical thinking techniques. Okay, we have four techniques, or usually that will be related to critical thinking. Number one is appreciate listening. Number two, empathic listening. Number three, comprehensive listening. Number four is critical listening. Appreciate listening. Listening is for pleasure or enjoyment, as when we listen to music, to comedy or routine, or to an entertaining speech. For example, while you enjoying your music. So that is what we call appreciate listening. Empathic listening. So, listening is to provide emotional support for the speaker, as when the psychiatrist listens to a patient or when we lend a sympathetic ear to a friend in distress. So, this is an emotional support when we lend to our friends if we have some of conversations, a serious conversations, and it involving with the person's emotions. We usually will post some of the empathic gestures or sympathies to them whenever they have um, what we call confess to something of their problem to you. And this is the most important in our life because this is can be lifted to their emotions, and this is actually the most crucial skills that we as a human being need to be practiced in our daily life. And number three is comprehensive listening. So as a student, you are usually will be practicing these skills. So comprehensive listening is a listening to understand the message of a speaker. For example, classroom lecture or listening to a direction for finding a friend's house. So this is a, a action where you want to summarize a knowledge or information you receive from the speaker, and this is usually will be act on informing people and receiving the informations. Last but not least is critical listening. As for critical listening, is a listening to evaluate message for purpose of accepting or rejecting it. As when we listen to the sales speech of a car salesperson or the campaign speech of a political candidate. So this is when you listen to evaluate the message whether you want to accepting the idea or want to rejecting the idea. So just let's imagine that when you want to find a shoes and then some of the salesmen try to explain to the benefits, the advantage of the shoes to you and try to sell the item or the shoes to you. So sometimes you will be critically skeptical whether it is true or are you judging to their facts or they're saying the certain concept or certain idea behind of the selling item. So this is where you have committed a critical listening in order to judge whether you can accept it or rejecting the idea. So both of these techniques, comprehensive listening and critical listening, have been playing a very close to the critical thinking. Okay, so critical thinking involves a number of skills such as summarizing information, recalling facts, distinguishing main points from the minor points. As for the critical listening, critical thinking will be involved in separating fact from opinion, spotting weakness in reasoning, and judging the soundness of evidence. So both of these skills is important as a academics or as a students. So as academicians and as a students, you have been widely practice these both skills in order that you need to be success in the academic area. So you have to practice a critical thinking in order to evaluate the information or the knowledge that you receive in order that you can make a better decision where you are doing your research or doing some of problem solving. So these are uh, the four causes of poor listening. Number one is not concentrating. Number two, listening too hard. Number three, jumping to conclusion. Number five, focus on delivery and appearance. So let's take a look on one by one. Not concentrating. So this is the most common of poor listening. We as a human being, we as a speaker, we have a plenty of spare brain time. Okay, what is a brain time? What is spare brain time? Is the difference between the rate at which most people talk 120 to 150 words a minute and at the rate at which the brain can process a language which is 400 to 800 minutes words a minute. So we as a human being, when we're receiving some of informations, we usually able to remember the words between 400 to 800 in a minute. And if it is more than 800 in a minute, we might tend to missing few of the informations. All right. So that is the common of what we call a common weaknesses that a human being has. And then number two, listening too hard. We try to remember all the person's names, all the dates of important dates, our friends' birthday, our friends' anniversary, our important date, submissions date, and so forth. And all the places in the process, we often miss the speaker main points. And then we end up in a confusing the facts as well. So if you want to be a good listener, rather than trying to remember everything what the speaker says, as an efficient listener, you just have to focus on certain main points and evidence. Jumping to conclusions, we move to the third point, putting words into a speaker mouth. That's a reason why we sometimes communicate so poorly with people we are closest to. Because we are so sure we know what they mean, we don't listen to what they actually say. And then we prematurely rejecting the speaker's ideas as boring or misguided. I know that this is also might be occurred to us. You might also have been experiencing it, or you've been committed it. Then try not to fill up the conclusion to the speaker, or as a listener, if a persons are trying to fill up your information before you're able to finish what you want to say, so you let them know and inform them that you are not finished what you're saying, and don't let them to jump into a conclusion. Sometimes it will be misguided, or you will be misunderstanding. It might be you will be embarrassing. Number four, focus on delivery and appearance. We judge people by the way they look or speak and don't listen to what they say. So usually when you have heard a speaker accents are different than you tend to focus in that area, and then you missing the message of the speaker. And you'll also pay attention more to the personal appearance or the vocal mannerisms. So sometimes if you have encountered to this, try not to focus too much on the appearance or the other effects. Please pay attention to the message but not to the package. Alright, okay, so this is a test of you to evaluate your listening skills. So you can do this in the textbook, you can do it in your own pace, and then you can calculate how much is you can total score yourself. So in this part, we're talking about active listener. So, active listener is a giving and divided attention to a speaker in a genuine effort to understand the speaker's point of view. In conversations, they don't interrupt the speaker. And when they listen to a speech, they do not allow themselves to be distracted by the internal or external interference, and they do not prejudge the speaker. They take listening seriously and do the best they can to stay focused on the speaker message. So this also the um, the technique or the reasons to improve your listening skills. All right. Number one is to resist distractions. To resist distractions, you have to eliminate all the physical and mental distractions. For example, environmental noise, psychological noise. Environmental noise is similar to a room that have machines that is like a photocopy machines. It's quite noise, then you're unable to hear the speaker voice or what they are talking. Or your psychological noise, for example, you have your problem in that day, and then you're unable to be paying attention to what people saying that because you thinking your problem too much. So that is distractions that will be either the ideas or the conversation you have with your friends or with your lecturers. And then don't be diverted by the appearance or delivery. Put aside preconceived judgment based on a person's look or a manner speech, and don't let negative feeling about the speaker appearance. Try not to mislead if the speaker has unusually attractive appearance. If someone is good looking and has a polished delivery, it doesn't mean that he is she is speaking eloquently, and then respond to the message, also not to the package. Number three, suspend your judgment. So you must agree with everything you hear? Not at all. So you have to think first before you do your decisions. And then you should hear people out before you reaching your final judgment. And then try to understand to their point of view. Listen to their ideas and examine their evidence, assessing their reasoning. After that, you make up your mind. So usually, the aim of active listening is to set aside of your own prejudice, the frames of reference and desire so as to experience as far as possible to the speaker world from the inside. So this means that you want to listen to without any quick judgment or the earlier judge that you have with the speaker. So you want to have your zero frame of reference and you want to absorb that as much as possible and as open as possible. So try to be an open when you commit to a conversations with a stranger or with anyone that will you execute your conversation or communications. So when you have that another four techniques, so this is also talking about improving or focusing your listening. And number one, we have actually three. The first point is listen to main point, like we have discussed before. Listen to main points, evidence, and support from the speaker's point of view. You will have to check this word in their speech. For example, they will use a sequence main point like my first priority, my second priority, and my third priority. So when they have listing some of this point or in their speech, that means they are pointing out a main ideas. So please take note all of this sign and this signal when they have taking a note to their conversation or taking notes to what they talk. Listen for evidence. There are four basic questions to ask about the speaker's evidence. So first question that you have to ask is it accurate? You have to take the legitimacy and the source of it, is it can be trusted. Number two, is it taken from the objective source? So you have to see whether the speakers are not biased when delivering ideas. And number three, is it relevant to the speaker's claims? So whenever that they have point out or preach some of the points, you will need to check whether the logic or the source of it is relevant to the context. Is it relevant to the current situation? And number four, is it sufficient to support the speaker's point? So you have to summarize all of the question that you ask, whether the evidence is able to be committed, to be compiled, and then need to be encapsulated, then you able to think that the speaker is actually delivering and trusted informations, and you might want to proceed on believing on what the person saying or the speaker saying to you. Okay. Number three, listen for technique. Analyze the introduction. So when the speaker will talk to you or giving speech, you analyze the introductions. There will be a few methods of to gain the attention from the audience, and then it's, they will able to relate the topic to the audience, and they will able to establish credibility and goodwill. What is credibility and goodwill? Is they are righteous to delivering the speech? Did they have the recognition? Did they have the masters or the what we call the knowledge to proceed of the ideas or to deliver the knowledge to the audience. So they will need to expose or portray their and deliver their goodwill. Clear and easy to follow. So are they easily giving some of the main point? The sequence of the ideas is easy for you to follow and understand. And then can you follow from one point to another? So you look for the technique that this speaker have delivered their speech. Number two, study the speaker language delivery. Are they actually talk with clear, vivid, appropriate, fluent, dynamic, convincing, and how about the nonverbal gesture? And then did they have done some eye contact with you? Did they have an appropriate gesture while doing their speech? And is it the visual aids is adequately professionally provide? Okay, so this is also the technique that being uh, portrayed by the speaker. Number three, focus on strength and weaknesses. If the speaker is not effective in delivering speech, then you have to give your reason why. And then if it is effective, try to pick out the technique that you can use in your own speech or you can also use for your reference. So lastly is to focus your listening is by developing a note-taking skills. So what is developing note-taking skill? It is a method of writing down a keyword outline. It is an outline that briefly notes a speaker main points and supporting evidence in a rough outline form. So this is the important and the basic skills that the students need to possess. And sometimes when you trying to take note or writing a note from the speaker's lecture, you might think that you able to take all the words that being said by the lecturers, but you unable to do that because sometimes you will be having difficulty to focus and then your mind will be what we call thinking faster than your mouth. For example, where you have your attention to one of action, you're giving your attention to one action or one process. Sometimes your mind will be wandering different place, and then it'll be easier for you to lose your attention when the environment is not accommodate. For example, the noise, the computer noise, or some dog noise at outside, or children's are playing outside, or the room is too hot, then you will be losing your attentions quickly. And then you have to look at how the instructor or the lecturer giving a speech. So when you see that the lecturer or your instructor paying attention to a laptop or they're taking a note on the pen, it will take a paper, so you will be taking sure that take your moment and pause or jot down the main points or the key points that you have received from your instructor or from your lecturer. And then I know that most of the common problem the students are facing is that they have they have the tendency to jot down everything and then do not know how to differentiate between main points and what we call less important points, and they also don't know what to listen for, and they also don't know how to record what they do listen for. And the solution for this first problem is you have to focus on the speaker when they take pace, and then when they mention by saying sequentially, by saying that the first priority, or they give a signal by saying that this is very important to take notes, and all of the such word that giving indicator that this is emphasized is this giving an emphasis or it is important for you to take note. So once you know what to listen for, you still need a sound method of note taking. So by doing that, please take a keyword outline, because this is the best listening for classroom lecture and formal speeches, by only taking main points and separating that sub points and evidence. And then you just write it in a rough outline, and then you have to point at the relationship between the main points and the example or the evidence of the speakers. So you also can refer this example in the textbook. So that is all for chapter 3. So now let's recap. You have to understand that what are the difference between hearing and listening, and then you need also to understand of how that listening is connected with critical thinking. Why is it important to develop strong listening skills, and what are the four main causes of poor listening, and how to become a better listener. So please remember all of this recap, and then you can do your what we call your public speaking better in the future. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for giving your attention.